Maybe Abby, do you want to explain the situation with your being on Zoom and uh,
Yeah, sure. So first it is today is June 13th, 2024. And this is the Windham Elementary School Board of Directors meeting. And it is 1614 or 414, and the meeting is being called to order. So just as like Daniel had mentioned, a brief explanation. I was there. Our family just recently got informed that we may have been exposed to someone who has COVID, has been tested positive for COVID. Um, so I opted to not sit in the room with folks there, masked up. Instead, I'm home. So I will be participating through this via Zoom, just out of extra caution, so folks can hopefully not get contagious, although I'm healthy and fine, and hopefully we're fine. So, but moving on, so the meeting's been called to order. I think we can go ahead with public comment. Are there folks here with public comment?
Yes.
Okay, I heard a voice in the room. I'm gonna just take a guess at that's Susan Persa.
It was Gail, but I'm here, Susan.
Oh, okay, Gail. Sorry, I couldn't see Gail Wyman. Go ahead, Gail.
Okay, come over here. It's okay, go ahead. You got me. Okay. Oh, well, we're here because we have formed the Town of Windham Historical Society, and we're very excited about learning about our history and preserving it for future generations. And we've been meeting every week on Wednesday, and sometimes we have as many as 12 people, and telling us their stories, which we're recording, and we're gathering pictures and putting them into albums and stories, researching like when the first houses were first built. Like Mr. Aiken was one of the first ones, Edward Aiken in North Windham. And we're just overjoyed with all we're learning. But we need a place to put our things and to hang our hat, so to speak. We've been meeting in the town office, but we said we was too noisy for them. And then this last week we met in the South Windham Church, a Valley Bible Church, and that's fine. But we can't keep things there, you know. And like people want to give us other articles to save. And the meeting house, we can keep some things there, but if we had our own place, we could set up, we could do much more.
Yeah.
And we did have a trip to the Jamaica Historical Society, which is held at the old Jamaica Bank. And we were just appalled at piles and piles. It's a building, it has several rooms, and even the safe, piles and piles of stuff. When people hear that you are saving history, or trying to save history, they'll bring you things. Like, we have visions of a sugaring exhibit, with the yolks from the oxen and the taps and the buckets and those kind of things.
So I guess what type of space are you looking for in terms of like the raw space? Like for instance, there's the parent teacher room, I think, right here, or there's like the science room, or what used to be Marco's room.
Mr. PJ's room?
Yeah, Mr.
Yeah.
PJ's room, etc.
Yeah, that's fine to start.
Yeah.
That would be a good start, yeah.
That would be a good spot, he said, yeah.
Okay. Abby, I don't know how you feel about this. We could add it to the agenda. I would think that we'd probably want to assign a key to one of you, so you have access.
Well, I have a key.
Oh, you do have a key,
I
so
can take care of the building.
that's right. Okay, so we could do it that way.
So
what do you-
one of the things we have to consider, which I think is, hold on, I'm looking at the agenda. So was trying to see if this would kind of fall into anything else that we're discussing later on in the agenda. But with that, there's potential for July 1st for other revenue sources coming in on the layout of the building, handicap bathroom access. So it depends on the type of space that is really needed. And if, I think there's definitely further conversation to have with that. But just to make sure everything is, and working best for everybody. So, that's just the thing is I think the room that the meeting's taking place in now is the handicap accessible bathroom. So that room would need to be accessible to anybody that is using the building, regardless of space. So I don't know how that impacts folks. So there's more that we can definitely have regarding that, your interest, and that I'm honored that you would think of this building, and I think that's great. So further on conversation, we could definitely add it to further agenda for future agendas to discuss further, unless there's more to discuss on this agenda. Daniel, what are your thoughts on that? Because after public comment, we can add things to the agenda.
Yeah, my thought is that we're still working on details for the rest of the programming. So like daycare, after school, we were kind of looking into July. It sounds like they're already meeting. Is that correct?
Yes.
So maybe while we're working through the rest of the reverse Jenga of the programming of who's using what space and what times and stuff like that, maybe in the meantime you guys can use the space, and then once we get, I kind of envisioned let's get everyone together and kind of understand times and dates and how people want to use space.
And also I'm thinking a lot of these things are valuable, and we need to have a way to lock the door, and we could lock the door there.
Oh, that's true.
Well, the inner classroom's got a lock, it's a single door lock.
Yeah, we also have closets and different places that we could do. Yeah. I mean, would you agree with that, Abby, that we could at least, in the meantime, let them meet here, and have a dedicated space for them to go through their program while we work on
They
it?
would also need to sign the waiver. So I would say, let's add this. We'll add a section to the agenda to discuss this briefly because we're in public comment. We're well past the 3-minute marker. So to kind of be able to move with it. So when we get to changes to the agenda, I think that would be something to add. And we do have other things for folks on the line to be adding to the agenda. So, does that sound reasonable, Susan and Gail and Paul?
Yeah, I just want to add that we're certified with the state. We have licenses for all we do, and the state actually is going to come and visit us in a couple of weeks. So we're not just fly by night. We're here to stay.
We're a 5013C.
Okay, that's I was curious, but okay.
We got all the certificates and they're registered with the government.
But we're fine meeting in either churches until
Until we figure out the full puzzle. Okay. Yeah, if you guys have, we could talk about it later in the agenda, but if you guys have any documentations or things that you have, you could go ahead and pass it off to the school board, just so we have it on record.
Okay. You mean the 501? Okay. I'll send it to you. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely.
And for interrupting you.
So moving along with public comment, is there other folks here for public comment? I don't see any hands raised. Anybody else in the audience? No? Okay, so we can move on to changes to the agenda. So we have additional correspondence from a couple folks that will be added to the agenda as well regarding tuition reimbursement. The appointing truant officer is kind of a moot point at this, so I think we can remove that from the agenda.
Well, I think we need to, correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, we just need to appoint a truant officer, and it could be the Windham County Sheriff.
Wouldn't that fall under whichever school the families send their students to?
Potentially,
Well-
but the statute still requires that boards adopt one. And so even Stratton as a non-operating does name one. In practice, they don't really exercise anything with it, but by statute, you
But
are.
there's a
supposed to.
cost to it.
There is no cost to it unless it gets utilized. It's a pay for service contract, so.
So
Okay.
hopefully won't need to run into that scenario.
Okay.
It's
And
literally just a
then,
compliance with the law thing, really.
okay. And then under new business, if we could add, the, Historical Society,
Yeah.
discussion of space. And I think that's all I've got for changes. Daniel, anything else that you can think of?
No, as long as we had, I think it was Meredith and Aaron's correspondence.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Okay. All right. Well, with no further changes to be made, we can move on to correspondence.
Cool.
So
Uh,
we've you go ahead, Daniel. I'll let you run that
Oh,
one.
no, you got it.
Oh, I got it. Okay. So there's so 4 families have requested tuition for I believe it's the mountain school, I think for all 4 families. And also for those families that students were going to the mountain school during the time of starting from the beginning of the year when we temporarily closed the elementary school and students got tuitioned, they paid out of pocket for that. So these are requests to, since the school was not operating, be reimbursed for that as well as future tuition to that school. So with that being said, anyone that submitted correspondence, is there other information that maybe is left out of that that you would like added? Okay. So not hearing anything with that.
Yeah, so out of the crowd, I see Bridget, Emily. I'm not sure if Meredith or Aaron are able to join. But what I'll say is that we did bring it to Mark's attention. I will say that he did not contemplate, because you guys quoted something he said in regards to non-operation should be some essentially applicable to a closure or is synonymous with a closure. So he didn't contemplate this type of scenario when he said that, but that said, he is looking into it. I have a meeting next week to talk to him about the details. So, but we can only touch on it right now until we get more details. But you guys are free to either read your correspondence or anything you'd like to add to it.
So again, just to be clear, those families requested the tuition for the upcoming year, as well as the retroactive reimbursement. We're going to get more further information on the reimbursement piece, but as far as the tuition, your correspondence has been received. And I think under new business, there's going to be a little bit clearer under the letters to families for enrollment and such, just to, for other folks, if you are not already aware of where you want to send your child or students, that will be explained later on. So again, I think we had someone join. Oh, Bridget Blanchard, your hand is raised. Go ahead, Bridget.
Oh, I just wanted to say thank you for looking into that for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I hope you're not disappointed that we don't have an answer, but we just need to. It's a decent amount of our funding, so we're going to look into it, make sure. I saw that Deb was copied on those requests. We've had success in the past with Mark and Deb connecting, just kind of understanding each other's intentions. Would that be possible in this case? If not, we can go through the motions, talk to Mark, and start to get some discussion around this. And that was a question for you, Bridget, and it's okay if you don't have an answer at this moment, but we can we can talk offline and
Sorry,
correspond.
no, bad service right here. No, that's fine to have Deb look into that. That sounds good.
Okay, cool.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. So moving on to old business. We have approved the minutes. So before we get into that, there was a couple things that I gotta see which one it was. This is. Well, I'm digging in to see where I've highlighted. Daniel, did you have anything or anyone else? Anything with the minutes?
No, I think it's good. Most of them
So
are
there
Annie, and you did a great job. Thank you, Annie.
Yes, a fabulous job. I'm very impressed. Articles, what was it, this page? Trying to think which one talked about, it's double-sided on my printout thing, so I'm flipping and flopping.
Oh,
There's one section of minutes, let's see, the 28th informational meeting. Nope. Where it said Abby. I was talking about, I think, the school assessments. And I don't believe that was me. So I just wanted to make sure it wasn't like Jen or somebody in that particular.
wait, these are later minutes. Why would we talk about assessments at all?
Well, that's a great question.
Sounds like a topic from like January or December.
Oh my goodness. Well, it was very thorough. And approved thing. This might be the one.
Do you want me to make you host so you can share screen or?
Oh gosh, no screen sharing for me. I'm limited technology here. So well, I can't find the one that I was talking about. So I'm just gonna go with that. It is gotta be okay, because I thought I had highlighted it and I'm not seeing it.
If you find it, we can correct it.
So with that being said, that there was just that one that I had a question. So to approve minutes, I motion to approve minutes for 4/11/2024, 4/18/2024, 4/26/2024, 5/9/2024, and 5/8/2024. Can I get a second?
5/28, 24.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes, minutes are approved. Financials. So I do have some questions for the financials. Daniel, did you even see them? Because I did not see your name listed as somebody to review.
Yeah, they had I don't know who's on or if Bob even knew about this, but there was some problem with DocuSign where they had to send me a separate link, but I think they got me on it. So
Okay.
But
There's a lot.
I'm not sure if they like spliced it in with the other ones that you and Rory did or what, but yeah.
Yeah, there's just a few things. It's a bulk order, pay order 38. However, there's legal expenses for Mr. Ottinger, as well as a lot of back pay expenses for the SU legal. So I don't know why all that's coming through in this one big bulk payment. Also, I did not see anything in there. Maybe Daniel, you saw it with my back pay. I've only been paid, I'm on my third term. I've only been paid for one term. So I'm just kind of curious with this approval of pay orders. I know we need to get the attorneys paid. But it just seems like everything got kind of squished in there, and I don't know if it needs to be separated.
So Abby, maybe I can help out here. I can tell you that Heidi is on the call with us and she might be able to answer some of those questions. I do know that there was a time several months ago where the back pay for you from a previous fiscal year was on the agenda, but you guys, I think you skipped over it or didn't take action on it. And so there was no, because it was from a previous fiscal year, it would have required board action. And the board never took action on it that I'm aware of. And so that cannot be paid until the board takes action. But as far as the rest of the stuff, I think they're trying to finish out the fiscal year, which is why you're getting a bigger check. But Heidi can speak to any specifics if you want to ask her.
Okay, so I guess the far back bills with Black Lynn SU attorney stuff. Can you maybe explain, Heidi, why that is all back paid or why we have back bills?
Yep. So a bunch of legal bills came in and were paid during the month of May. And so the way the central office handles those bill backs that come in and we pay for all the school districts is once a month, we go in and reconcile and then bill out to the school districts. So apparently there was a lot of legal bills that came in between April and May for several months that we hadn't already gotten. So it just unfortunately happens to be all coming in towards the end of the fiscal year. And we're trying to get as much in as possible so that we can close our books at the end of June.
Okay. Thank you. And then there were items on there for like copier lease. My understanding that's done. So I want to make sure that's not a renewal fee because I thought that clearly the copier isn't going to get renewed and you guys are going to take that, right? Wasn't that my understanding?
That is correct. We're trying to finish out on the contract. So there will be one more because again, the central office pays for all the school districts and then bills back. So we still have June's to pay. So there will be one more lease payment that you'll be seeing before those machines get taken away.
Okay. And then the phone service, do we need to keep the super high-end expensive phone service now that it is not a school?
So we have been decreasing the lines. I've disconnected a number of them, but because you're a school building, we still need the fire alarm panel and you still need a phone line on top of that for emergency situations. So I know Greg is looking into putting in a cellular fire alarm panel so that we can disconnect that copper line, but I think he's from what I've heard from the electrical company, we're still maybe months away from that. I'm not quite sure. They're working on it. So I have you down to 2 phone lines because that's what we have to have while you have a building and people inside of it.
Yes, perfect. That's great to know. So thank you so much for that.
Yep, you're welcome.
And security, that is also going to end come July, right? I did see an email, a few emails from Matt from IT and Greg regarding the DVR. I'm really not too thrilled about the DVR system. So what I'll do is I have done some research on different things we could possibly look into. And we'll send that out to the board to review for potential changes that clearly July 1st, Bob, I'm understanding, right? You guys are yanking the security.
So unless you
the cameras and stuff too, or just
the cameras are owned by the district, so those would remain, but they wouldn't be connected to anything unless you either replaced it with some other service or I think what we talked about last time with Lori was that if you want to stay on the server for now until you got it figured out, there would be a monthly fee in essence. But I think it's a year license, but it's $100 or $200 per camera. So you might have to pay that anyways, but there wouldn't be any additional IT SU assessment for you if you did that. It would just be that, lump sum to be in the system. So it might be better financially if you guys just to stay on that system if you chose, but it's entirely up to you. But yeah, as of July 1, if you don't have an agreement in place with Matt to continue that, he will shut off the licensing and the cameras will basically just be for show.
Okay, which we don't want. So we'll definitely be making sure to
but this is
with some plan.
This is your last board meeting before then, probably. So it might be good to have a plan. If you're
Yeah,
If you
we
guys
may have
do
to have
that.
have some kind of meeting to figure that out beforehand. I don't have that information. The board hasn't been given it. So I
Gotcha.
just don't think Daniel, that'd be
Right.
reasonable to try to make any decisions without having that information at hand. So
And if he doesn't renew it, if he doesn't hear in time, he doesn't renew it, my guess is that he could probably turn it back on once you guys make that decision. So it's probably not the end of the world if it was off temporarily while you waited to make that decision. So
excellent. And then also I did see, okay, so back to the pay orders. So we've got landscaping that was paid to, but my question is for the school maintenance. We have a sign that's been out. I thought Greg was going to post it for the playground that has been sitting since the beginning of the school year, right when you walk in the door. Is that not what something Greg would do? Is that something we should be asking like the landscaping people to put in? It's the playground sign that,
that's the
we
sign that was
have.
up at one point, but then got taken down. Is that right? Because wasn't it hanging on the side of the building at one point?
Not that I'm aware of. I think it's probably been in the building since it's been received. So, but I would
Right.
like to get it put up so that it's,
Yeah. So
uh,
I could ask Greg if there's a chance someone could run up and do that unless you have someone that could do it on your end. I mean, it's not typically something that would be Greg's responsibility, but you guys don't have someone else doing that kind of work. So I could ask him.
awesome. And then just let us know if not, and if we have to find somebody, then that'd be great. I was just under the impression that that was going to happen and I didn't see it happen. So,
Gotcha.
so with the financials, Daniel, so you did review them. Are you comfortable with everything that's in there? Or do you have questions?
Yeah, I was curious about the legal bills too, because I expected Marks, but not Visbit. So Visbit, Heidi, you were saying that Visbit is from prior months. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, Bob might be able to speak more about what the legal fees were, but I know that we have paid multiple months, probably from January through May at this point. And that's why it's kind of all coming in for all the school districts, for everybody. I mean, Bob talks to the lawyers for all the school districts, so there's a trickle of bills that are always things
Yeah.
to be paid.
But I also think, Heidi, wasn't there an issue with Linland, Blackman, Moninsky did give us some stuff late, and there was some kind of a glitch, because I remember when I approved a most recent batch of stuff from Linland, Blackman, Moninsky, it included stuff going back to October for Windham.
Yes, and that I was assuming that was paid the previous month, because there have been two big months
okay.
of bills. So if you didn't approve financials, I didn't catch which financials, if you were doing 2 months tonight or just one. But there was a bigger one 2 months ago that should have come in through April. I can pull them up.
Yeah, this one is just one, Heidi, and it's
There was about
38.
How much?
It's pay order number 38. It's $18,592.65.
For the entire pay order?
Yep.
And with the legal bills, because legal bills for 1 month came in for $8,000, and that was for a very long period of time, for most of the year, I think. And
I can't see the specifics, so I don't know what's on the pay order. All I know is the
okay,
total.
let me see if I can find the pay order. I just have to bring up my Google Drive.
I think what we could do is approve, but I might want some background detail, because I can't remember if there's anything that we would have asked Visbit around like April on, because you guys were involved with Supreme Court case around our failed budget, and then there was a transition to Mark because of availability, and we haven't utilized Visbit since. So maybe some background detail around that.
Well, there was the original court case, which he did deal with some stuff up until the.
Oh, that's right.
So there was some stuff that he was engaged with through Visbit on that.
Okay.
So that was after. I think he even was doing that concurrently while Mark was advising on other stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, the Visbit bill for this month that I'm looking at right here is the insurance deductible. So if you're looking at the $3,260, that is your insurance deductible for a particular legal claim that you have been dealing with.
Okay.
So that's not legal fees. That is specifically an insurance deductible.
Okay.
But it's probably related to that lawsuit, is my guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, you're right about that. Okay. Yeah, that squares in. Yeah, no, I'm good then.
Okay.
Thank you,
So
Heidi.
You're welcome.
I would, yes, and thank you, Heidi. Welcome aboard, and
Thank you.
I'm sure you're
Welcome
hitting
aboard.
the ground running. And I don't know
Thank you.
if
Thanks.
we've been able to say that to you. So thank you very much. You are very much appreciated.
Thank you.
I would ask Daniel if you'd consider maybe making a motion about my back pay, because I would really like to get paid.
Yeah, when I
Whopping
talked to Lori,
$400.
well, when I was talking to Lori about FY25 budgeting, and we were going back and forth, I originally had your back pay in FY25, but she did say that it should be in FY24 instead. So yeah, I motioned for Abby to be paid back pay for her school tenure, school board tenure for FY24.
Well,
I
think it's
second.
actually, I think it's FY23, isn't it? Payment.
Oh,
You
is it
did receive one
FY23?
this year.
Well, not for me, but for Abby. But was it FY23 or 24, Abby?
This is my third term.
Okay.
I have been paid once, so I'm gonna imagine it was probably my 22 term year that never got paid.
So the
Okay.
term, here's one wrinkle. I know it's hard to think about. The terms don't line up with the fiscal years.
Yeah.
Right.
So you get
That's
paid
exactly what
during
I
a
was just
fiscal
thinking
year.
about.
Yeah, so you get paid during a fiscal year. So I don't know. I'm not sure, but I don't
Yeah.
think it was that. My point was it wasn't FY24. It was a back year, correct? That you got a payment this year.
Correct. So
Okay.
there's a tons of documentation that was required. I was unaware at first, my first year, that they didn't have it. So when I started to inquire about it, that's when I was told I needed to fill out all the stuff. And
Yeah. So
Right.
I think a motion for previous fiscal
Yeah.
year's payment, I think covers you, Dan.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just going to make it a general motion. So I motion for Abby Pelton to be granted any back pay from past fiscal years.
seconded. Any discussion from folks?
Nope.
Beautiful. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you.
No problem.
Motion passes. And then would that then change, Heidi, this pay order? Would we add that to this pay order, or will that be a separate pay order?
That's going to be a separate one. We're going to have to do it in the accruals that we'll do in the middle of July. So now that we have that in a motion, we will put it together.
Fabulous. Okay. So then I also will make a motion to approve pay order 38 in the amount of,
No, sorry.
good. It was 18,564.63.
$18,592.65.
That number. Yes. Can I
And
get a second?
Yep. Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Pay order 38 is approved. So appoint truant officer. I move to appoint Windham County Sheriff's Office as the truant officer.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Windham County's got it. Moving on to new business. Oh, that's something principal report. We can discuss a principal report. I think there's students that are graduating from school, or at least from their grade this year. So that's pretty exciting. And I don't know if going forward that'll be necessary to have a principal report for the various schools that students may be attending. So I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
My guess is
want-
that that'll probably be something that will come off your agenda. It's going to be a challenge, as you imagine, with all the different schools you might have kids at.
Correct. And And superintendent report. Bob, you want to share the superintendent report with us, please?
Yeah, sure. So you have the cabinet report earlier in the month. I think just legislatively, I think folks have seen that the governor vetoed the yield bill. There is an override session scheduled for Monday in the House and the Senate. If the House and the Senate override that veto, then the yield will be set. Additionally, there is a lot of language in that bill which calls for a commission to study public education in Vermont, the funding formula, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that would also go into effect if the veto is overridden. There's quite a bit of information out there, and I think you guys got that through the VSBA's weekly newsletter about what happens if it doesn't pass an override, and then everything gets sort of set back to last year's numbers. And so what would happen typically is that the non-homestead tax rate would in effect drive people's taxes up for non-homestead, and those that are homestead residents of Windham, their rate would actually go down, which sounds great, except that it would create a deficit in the ed fund of about $87 or $82 million. And so, yeah, so that's problematic.
It is.
And they have some reserve funds, but by statute, the ed fund has to maintain at least 5% of the overall balance in a reserve fund. And so they would, they can't take all the money out of the reserve because it would violate the law. And so there's a bunch of different things that are going to be a challenge if they don't do the override. So we will see what happens on Monday, and I'm sure you'll get more notifications from the VSBA around that. But it's going to potentially impact tax bills and everything else in every town in the state, not just yours. So we're kind of in a holding pattern on that to see what the House and the Senate does. So if you have people you can contact, now's the time to contact them.
Exactly. I just wanted to throw that out there to anyone. I thought about doing it as a school board update, but VSBA has been keeping us up to date for a lot of this, and it's been quite a circus. But if you guys want to, I definitely urge people to contact your representatives and really voice your opinion about this, because that veto is pretty detrimental to the fund. And I think that there should be more public outrage over it. So I'll probably provide some links in a future school board update that gives some details who you can contact and stuff like that.
And then the rest of the report, just to give you guys an update, you may have students who end up at Townsend again next year. There's a new principal that's been identified in the reformer. There was a little story about Randy Lichtenwalner, who's been hired for the Townsend principalship. He comes from Stamford, Vermont elementary school, where he's been for 3 years, and previously was in New York State as a principal and curriculum leader. And so we're very excited about having him at Townsend. So some of your kids would experience him as a principal as Renee moves into the curriculum coordination role at the SU level. And as you know, Heidi is taken over on July 1 as the director of finance. And you guys, I think, have been paying attention to that as we've talked through. Lori will be staying on for 6 months just to help smooth that transition. And the SU board approved that last fall. And that partnership will continue for 6 more months. We are in the process of looking for a assistant business manager to replace Heidi. So if you know anyone who's interested in that, have them check out our posting. But we're looking for a smooth transition in the business office for Heidi, and we're excited to have her on board. And very pleased about that transition. So I think that's probably all I have. There's a lot more under the enrollment stuff later on the agenda that I'll be piping in on, but I think that's all I got for my report. Unless folks have questions.
Cool.
Thank you, Bob. I'm not seeing any hands in Zoom land. Anybody in the audience there, Daniel? Questions for Bob?
No.
All right. Thank you very much. We can move on to letters to families for enrollment.
Okay. Well, back to me again.
There you go.
So, at our prep meeting, Dan and I were talking about sort of how we, as a group, respond to your vote passing, your budget passing, and your tuitioning for private schools and such. and how do we sort of track that information? And so one of the things that I think you guys get this, but I'll just say it again, is that regardless of where kids go, we need to track them, because you get money from the state for every student that is a Windham resident. And in this past year, some of your Windham residents had chosen to go to private school, which means they paid their own tuition. We did not get money from the state for those students because they were parent placed. So those students returning to the fold, if you will, we will get money for them from the state as a student count. And of course, then there's an expense of the tuition side as well. So we need a way to capture the information of those students so we can track that for our state reporting, and so that the financial stuff works itself out. So that's one piece of it. The other piece is we want to know where they're going. We want to be able to help support folks in their choices and make sure they're informed. So I shared with you guys a draft of a letter, an email today. I didn't have it ready for the packet, and it was really just a draft letter anyways, which basically highlights sort of the process for parents, explains the vote, explains what's next, and it goes through talking about how to identify what school they want, and it talks about if they're looking outside of Townsend as their option, how to submit a stipend for transportation, which we'll talk about later, I think, as far as how you're going to divide that up. But Google Forms have been created by IT and by Lori's office, or soon to be Heidi's office, to collect that information for the financial side of things. So my letter basically points them in that direction. Additionally, because you guys have passed the residency policy a little bit ago, I developed a procedure, which I believe I shared with you as well, to walk through how that policy plays itself out. And so I wanted to just walk you through that now so you can kind of get a sense of it. If you have a student who is a new student to town, let's say, they would have to fill out a residency affidavit. And a copy of that is, I believe, linked in the email I sent you. That affidavit would live online, but it would also have hard copies at the town office. And the family would go in, they'd fill out the affidavit, they would basically demonstrate residency, and there's a bunch of different documents that was outlined in the policy. And the town clerk would reach out to me when a packet was submitted. She would confirm for me the residency, and then I would submit to them the process through the procedures of how to select a school, who to reach out to at each place, so on and so forth, but also how to access the transportation stipend if they were not going to Townsend, and so forth. So all of that is in draft form. It's ready to go. My hope was that you guys would be like, yeah, it looks great. And then I could get that out to families tomorrow, so that they can start to plan, because summer is now kind of, unfolding for them. And we could start to collect information. They could reach out, and then we could start to think about the bus stuff and the transportation piece, and so on and so forth. So that was kind of my thought. I just want to share with you sort of the draft of all those materials and take whatever feedback you have.
Yeah, so Bob, I have the enrollment or the letter, but the other one I got access denied.
Oh, no.
Can you, I sent a request. I don't know if that goes through Sue or not.
Which one was that got denied?
The second one, the procedure. Yeah.
I don't believe I received that.
Well, I sent an email to the board today. So it was this afternoon. It was like at 1 o'clock or so.
Yeah,
Oh,
you're copied on it.
All right, bear with me a second. I'm sorry. I don't know why that was like that. I tried.
No, that's all right.
So
The only thing I
not
see,
the affidavit, not the residency affidavit.
no, the here I can just tell you what the name is. It's the Windham School District Enrollment Procedure document.
Is there a way that maybe you could share? I haven't seen it, so I don't know. Do we need to make movement on this?
I could certainly.
Yeah,
You want me to share screens? I can do that, Dan, if you want to give me that authority.
Yeah, give you that. There you go.
And I just want to recognize Kathy Edgerly's hand is raised. So I'm not sure if it is for you, Bob, or not, but Kathy, just hang tight for a minute.
So, so this is the procedure. You can see it links to the policy that you guys have already passed. And it basically describes that, that students, as resident students, can access school choice to any public or approved independent school. But in order to qualify, families must ensure they're enrolled with Windham, and that's the quote unquote enrolled, meaning that we know so we can collect from the state. New residents would have to be required to complete a residency proof affidavit. Obviously, existing ones would not. Once residency has been determined, families would enroll with Windham and then officially enroll at the chosen school, citing Windham as the hometown for billing purposes. And then I talk about the cost of tuition of an approved independent above the Vermont state average for elementary schools shall be borne by the family, because you're only paying up to that average. And that changes yearly, so on and so forth. And then under the steps below, I have everything linked to the affidavit, and which I can show you if you want me to pull that up next. The Google form, which has the family fill out and identify which school they're going to. That's for our collection of their data. And then the next one is the transportation Google form, which goes to Lori's office for the stipend payout once you guys decide how you want to do that. And then, of course, step 4 is you contact the chosen school and enroll your kid. So that's kind of the process that parents would follow. And my letter explains it, and we would take my letter, and it's really meant for like right now, but we would modify the text on it and put it on the website so that it's like a standalone generic letter that explains how to do this.
Cool.
So I have some questions, Bob, as well. But first, I'm going to let Kathy go because I think she had her hand up. Kathy, did you have a question for Bob?
I did. I just wanted to make sure that I didn't hear Ellen's name mentioned. And I know that, we've changed some policies and regulations in other areas. But I just think it, puts a lot on her, and just to make sure that she's all up to speed with understanding everything that Bob just said. I think that maybe you've already done that.
Yep.
I'm just
Yeah. Ellen and I talked, we've had some email exchanges, and then today we talked on the phone just to confirm. Once I explained the process to her and I said, how do you feel about this? She said, fine. It's really going to be minimal because it's really only new families moving in or kids for first time moving into kindergarten that would have to do this process. But she was comfortable with it.
Super. I just wanted to make sure that that she, I'm sure you had, but sometimes we forget. Thanks.
No,
That's
I understand. Thank you for protecting her.
And I'm sorry. Did somebody else have their hand raised?
Pat McLean.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Pat.
You're on the mute, Pat. You want me to?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
For the parents of children who have not been going to Townsend Elementary, are they going to have to will they enroll as if they were a new family?
I mean, sort of. The residency piece, I'm guessing that Ellen's going to know who the residents are already, so they can skip that step if she's gives us the thumbs up on them. So they would just move on to the next part of that. And it's really just the residency piece would be for new families to town or new kindergarten enrollments.
So concern that I have as a board member is if we're tracking the residency affidavits and it's the town that's doing that, shouldn't the board also have some kind of access to confirm that who they are tuitioning is a resident?
Well, typically, the SU does that for Stratton. The board's responsibility, interestingly enough, is statutorily based on if there's a rejection of a residency claim. So if through a conversation that Ellen and I have, and that would be the one that would have to formally reject it, an appeal process would come to the board. But typically residency determinations are not made by boards. They're made by the administration. So because you don't have, typically in a school, it happens at the principal level, but because you don't operate a school, that would fall to me, my office. And I just work with Ellen to help collect the information. So yeah, you would get notified if there was a rejection and the family wanted to appeal. You guys would end up having an appeal hearing with them to hear their reasoning for why they think they should be a resident.
I think that's fair. I think that it should be the town's business to really determine if a family is indeed within Windham. I guess to Abby's point, would we have access to those affidavits if we needed to?
I mean, I don't,
I guess
mean,
we
I
can talk to Ellen about it.
I mean, typically board members don't have access to that level of like student and family information.
I see. Okay.
So I mean, I would guess probably not. It doesn't really, there's no statutory element that the board would have responsibility for in any of that. And so it would seem like a potential privacy thing for the families to have that information shared with the board. But again, if they appeal, then, the board is the authority that would have to hear that appeal.
So the other question I have, Bob, is isn't the Windham School District a K-6 public school?
Yeah, shoot, that's a typo. My bad.
And on that subject, there has been, since the vote on Saturday, clearly folks wondering about pre-K middle school choice. So can you maybe touch on what that means and kind of explain if people are going to pursue that, what that process looks like? And I think we also have the intention of having that conversation with Mr. Ottinger as well. But anything that you can share about that to folks that are very curious, we appreciate it.
Nothing that your town did in the votes on Saturday changes either of how those two sides of your school work. So the pre-K is the same, and I'll explain what that is, and the secondary is the same. Because Windham is part of the West River Unified Modified, 7 through 12 still, you guys are still tied to Leland and Gray in that regard and would not have school choice regardless of what you do K-6. So your only avenue there would be to try to get out of that union or make some alternative agreement with the West River District. For pre-K, it works the same as it does now. You guys didn't offer pre-K, but every pre-K student in Vermont gets a 10-hour voucher and paid for by the state. So if you had a student who was a pre-K student and went to a private pre-K, let's say like up the West River Montessori up in Londonderry, the district would get a certain amount of money from the state for that pre-K student, and the 10-hour payment would go, to that private pre-K, and then the parents would pay the difference for whatever that private pre-K was. Or they could just access the 10 hours a week and be done. The same thing is true as if they access a public pre-K. We've had students attend from Windham the Townsend pre-K program, and now, of course, Jamaica will also have one. In that it would work the same way. Your 10 hours would basically be like a credit. But after, if you're staying in there as a full-time pre-K program, because that's what West River offers, the dollar amount that's above and beyond that cost would get billed directly to the parent. And Heidi can talk more in detail about that if you want to know, but basically there's a pre-K rate that gets set up and the parents make monthly payments, and we set up a system for that. So those two things are exactly the same as they were pre-vote. Nothing has changed, and that's kind of how they're set up right now.
Right. So just so it's clear, because people seem to be very confused and saying, Windham's a choice town. They're a choice town for kindergarten through 6th grade.
That's correct.
And the rest is not. There's no choice as long as we are a part of
West River. You cut out there.
And Abby, Michael has the same.
Okay, so is there any question regarding the letter? And this looks fine as long as I don't have any issue with it. I have the concerns. I guess we could work with the town clerk on at least something that we can verify that people who we have submitted an affidavit. We may not need to necessarily access the affidavit itself, but maybe even something that's a checklist that they've done it.
Here's just so you can see the affidavit. This is the type of information that people are filling out. They're certifying certain things are true. They're signing off on it, and then it has a little check boxes to make sure they have the required documents to get residency. And this is true of any family moves to Leland and Gray in 11th grade. We still go through this process to determine residency, because only residents have access to public education.
Well, my only question is, I noticed that anytime you reference independent school, you put approved in front of it. But I saw in the letter that there is one time that you don't put approved in front of independent school. I'm just curious if you have to, or.
Well, I mean, the tuition money can only go to approved independent schools. That's the
Okay.
law. So, yeah, I will have to make sure that it's consistent in all places.
Okay. Yeah, that's my only note. I don't see anything else.
So I motion to approve the letter to families for enrollment.
Michael has the same.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Michael Pelton.
I have a question for Bob. Bob, my question is regarding the agreement with the Leland and Gray. So originally, and I can't give you the direct date, but it's a 1960 something, the town of Windham chose to align itself for high school with the seminary at the time, and that also included a stipulation where people that lived in the quote unquote north end of town could go to Chester Andover. And I'm wondering if that is the agreement that we're using to support our education with the seminary, or if there is like some sort of new agreement, and if that new agreement, if there is one, also includes that stipulation. And if there isn't a new agreement, then would it not be appropriate to assume that given that agreement was aligned with the 8 through 12, that we would align with the 8 through 12 versus the 7th and 8th, or actually it would be 9 through 12 rather. 7th and 8th was originally in Windham. Thanks.
So you asked a lot of questions with a lot of parts. I'm going to try my best, Michael. So my understanding is that when you reference the seminary, so that is pre, let's try the right word, I guess the union school formation. So that in 1968 or 9, I believe, the Leland and Gray was rebranded as a union high school in Vermont. It was no
yes,
longer
that's
called
the agreement
seminary.
I'm referring to.
Yeah, so in that agreement, I don't know of anything that had anything about people from the north end of town. I know that it was the secondary school for folks who reside in Windham. It's the only way I know of it. When the merger, the Act 46 merger happened, and it merged with Newfane, Brookline, Townsend, and Jamaica, there was a lot of discussion and action around how, who was going to be part of that and so on and so forth. And then I believe, that language in the Articles of Agreement for West River includes Windham in 7 through 12. And that is the governing structure now for West River. So Leland and Gray is not an entity in and of itself anymore, and clearly neither is the seminary. So everything would have to follow the Articles of Agreement that is the West River Articles of Agreement. And those are linked on our website, on the SU website somewhere. And those, I have no language like you've described. Now, I've heard rumors of that language that you described, but I've never seen it anywhere. And it certainly isn't in the Articles of Agreement for R46. I don't know if that helps, but I will tell you also this, that for 9 through 12, there is a thing as public high school choice, which means that any high school student in any town in Vermont can apply to go to any other public high school through high school choice, which means that any 9th through 12th grader in Windham could go to Green Mountain, this is the district that you're referencing, up in Chester. And if Green Mountain chooses to accept them, then, and they have caps and such, and it's you could go to Brattleboro, you could go to Twin Valley, you could go to Mill River if you wanted to drive, or Bells Falls. Any public school, Springfield actually maybe is one that's sort of in line. Burn is not public, so the public high school choice would not cover that, but it would cover any of the other public high schools. In that situation, just so the board understands, if a student chose to do that, the money does not follow the student. So the originating district keeps the ADM count for that student. And the only money that goes to cover expenses would be if the student was on an IEP. So schools are consistently concerned about making sure they're not losing more than they're gaining, to keep that balance. So they've set caps and limits and things for transferring in and out. So that might be a mechanism that you could use for a high school student to not go to Leland and Gray. but that does not exist for 7th and 8th grade.
Could I ask a quick follow-up then?
Yep.
If folks in town were interested in looking at tuitioning or something different than being locked into Leland and Gray for their 7th and 8th graders, what might they do to make that happen?
I mean, I think if that's something the board wanted to pursue, you'd probably want to have a conversation with an attorney to figure out what the path is. I wouldn't have the slightest idea on how to advise you on that.
Well, the reason I ask is it would be a legal expense borne by our board, and technically they don't oversee 7th and 8th grade. They only oversee K through 6. So it'd be, I'm just wondering if there's another path that we could take instead of accruing legal expenses.
Well, I mean, it could be an expense of the town because the town is the town's people are an entity in the West River Unified Modified District. So maybe the townspeople could vote to spend town money to do it. I don't know. It's a great question. No idea. I mean, I would guess, although I don't want to speak for the West River Board, that they probably would not want to spend money to do that for obvious reasons. But I suppose the Windham rep could ask the West River Board if they wanted to spend money to explore that.
Also, just to let you know, Bob, that information Lori did receive, so Heidi probably has, because when we were getting the federal ID thing squared away for the tax situation, we found all kinds of documents. And I think in the room with Daniel, with the historical folks there, that document we do have. So if you are interested in reading the wording on that, I'm sure we can get it sent to you. But it's, I believe, in our town office as well.
You're talking
also,
going
let's
way back,
see.
I mean?
The document that was had, and yes, and any if there was additional documentation, I think that should probably get added to it for when things merged, if there was wording. But as far as the town's decision, that's the last document that I'm aware of we were able to locate with the town weighing in on education of students for the supervisory union, and to, like Michael had mentioned, the seminary when that change had all happened. So but I do see Nancy or Frank are on, or one or the other. And you're muted, whoever is speaking or trying to speak.
I sent a ask to unmute. I'm not sure what that does. Just pings you, or I've clicked it multiple times, so.
I'm not sure if it's Nancy or Frank.
I'm still
We're unable to hear you. You're muted still.
multiple times. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay.
We can circle back, guys, if I'm gonna throw the hand down for now.
Okay. So now that I think I was moving to approve the letter to families for enrollment. Did we do that?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you very much, Bob, for putting that together.
Yep.
Hey, Abby, going back to the financials, you said you were going to meet with Matt about the security system. Is that right?
So there were emails that he came down to the school. I was unaware that he was gonna be at the school that day, and I was unable to be there. And I think Greg may have been there with him. But I haven't been able to connect with them. It's been a little bit crazy up until with the vote and everything. So I do plan on connecting with them, but the more I've been thinking about the DVR system, I have concerns with that as well. So but we can look at that. I think we add that to, nope, that's the Historical Society. That's the end of new business.
I just wanted to bring up something else that me and Bob were talking about before the meeting, was that we need to get a computer for our minute taker, Annie. And apparently he said to talk to Matt, and you said you were going to talk to Matt or something like that. So if you're gonna talk to him about the security system, can you also talk to him about the computer for Annie?
Yeah, there was
Oh, I
one.
thought Christine
That
was Bob
email
said
exchange.
bring it. That was my last thing, that you were gonna leave
Right.
one book at the school.
But you and Matt were going to connect, so I didn't know if he did bring it or not. That's what we needed to know.
I am not aware of it being there.
I looked around, I didn't see it, so
All right, I'll make a note to find out what's going on with that.
cool.
So are we good to move on to transportation?
Yep.
Okay, moving on to transportation for school year 2025. Transportation stipend procedure.
All right, so you guys have a certain amount. I think you budgeted $5,000 for next year for stipends for transportation. So what Lori did was just to do some math to try to figure out how to go about this. She took the overall transportation budget, the busing that is, divided by the number of students, to figure out like what an average cost per kid would be, to try to see how far that would go. And what she came up with was that you could basically, with 5K, using the averages she generated, could contribute $1,400 each stipend, and you could do that 3.5 times. So 3.5 kids, if that's the number you chose to use based on that calculation. So I guess the question is, how do you, like, we can collect the parents' names and information who want it, but you only have 5,000 to spend. So do you want to have like a cutoff date and then you just divide it evenly based on the number of people that applied for it? Do you want to base it on distance that they're traveling? Do you want to base it on a formula? Like, what, you have 5,000 and that's all you got. And so we got to figure out how you want to think about this being dispersed. We can create the mechanism for them to apply, and we can create the disbursement systems through Lori's office, but we don't know how you want to think about it.
So can we get the data in first? Can we just get who applies for it and where they're going? And then we can go from there. Because
part of that is then you have to have a deadline that you have to have it, in by a certain date for you to order to consider it, because you want to have as much up to date as possible. So I can create a deadline before the next time you meet that they have to have it in, so that we can come back with, hey, there's 6 families and there's $5,000. You can talk at that point if that's how you want to do it. I'm happy to do that. I would just set a deadline before whatever your next meeting is.
okay. Yeah.
That
I agree
also
with that.
falls pretty close to the 4th of July, so I'm not sure how many families
Well, and we may not,
that data collected, but I just would be sensitive to folks being around it.
I also think typically boards don't meet in July, right, Bob? I mean, that was something we talked about.
Yeah,
So-
we did put a question mark there, because typically most of the boards take the month of July off if there's no business to conduct. I mean, obviously this is something you'd have to nail down.
Yeah.
You could have a very short agenda and just do that one thing if you chose to have a meeting in July. But that's why we didn't know if you had a process that you knew you just wanted to follow, and then we could implement it. But it sounds like you kind of want to know how many people you're talking about first.
Yeah, and then we can figure out, I can figure out a system, or I can work with, would I be working with Heidi or Lori on that?
Well, I mean, probably Heidi at this point. Yep.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, Heidi, is Heidi still on? Yeah, Heidi, if you're okay with that, let's get who is electing for this, and then
That's fine.
some numbers.
Yep.
I could put some assumptions together.
Okay.
And then as far as cutoffs, but why don't we just be fair and before August 13th? So the August meeting, even if we do meet in July, let's give them a little more time.
It's whatever you guys tell me. Yep.
That sounds good to me.
Cool.
I mean, I don't get the sense that parents are going to not choose a school without thinking about what the stipend will be, right? So, you know what I mean? They're going to choose their school regardless. So it's not going to. I don't want to slow parents down, but I don't think this is going to slow parents down.
If it does, guys, send us an email and we'll figure it out.
Exactly. Thank you. transportation stipend, anything further on that?
I
think
don't
we've
think so.
That- So let's move on to bus replacement schedule.
And that was, yeah, so that was a Dan thing, right?
Yeah, so I was talking to Cord, and he wanted to send the bus in for repair and also inspection, and it's going to be a couple times. I mean, just regular maintenance happens, I think 3 times a year, he said. But it got me to thinking of, we have a document that says that the bus replacement will be in FY 30, I believe. I just wanted to kind of verify that because it seems pretty far out, and I wanted to, I asked Cord to ask the repair shop in Bellas Falls what they thought the useful life of the bus was left. So I'm not sure how the FY 30 came up, basically. Oh, and Michael may
I was going to ask Heidi if she knew anything about that or not.
Michael Pelton, go ahead.
My only comment is that it'd probably be worth having a discussion with whomever you purchase your bus through, or generally purchase the bus through, because there is going to be a window of time where you're going to get the most return on the bus. What we found with the town trucks is that depending on the truck and its particular use or equipment in general, actually, for instance, like a grader can last a significant amount of time, but at some point it becomes so degraded that you don't get the return back when you trade it in. So what we found is that we can make much better financial choices by getting rid of the bus at an earlier date when it has, lower damage and lower miles on it, and get a much, much better return. So when we buy a new vehicle, we have a greater amount of revenue.
Does anyone know who we bought the bus from last time? Okay, well, we can ask around and see.
So Heidi, if you want to chime in and let us know your thoughts.
Looking through some of the documentation I have that Lori has put in some Google folders that we were working on together, and I'm not finding.
Oh yeah, I can tell you.
Okay.
It is, because I just randomly came across it and I was like, oh, that's relevant. Tell you what, in the interest of time, I'll just send you it offline.
Okay, and maybe we just put this discussion on for the next meeting to continue the discussion about it, so that I can get the accurate information and we can all have the same information.
Yes, I might have just found it. It's the FY 25 Windham School District proposed annual budget. So it's on the there is a lot of information, but one of it is annual.
One of
bill.
the 10.
Yeah, one of the pages is
Yep.
page 6, and it's the Capital Transportation Needs Plan. And then it talks about new school bus, and it allots 90,000 by FY 30, with a contribution 10,000, but escalating for inflation.
Okay. I'm not seeing it in this folder, so I'm just, if you could share it with me, or I'll get it from Lori tomorrow and
Yeah, I'll do that now.
okay.
And Greg may be able to contribute to the purchasing and how that works, and where he may even have records going back to when it was before, or Lori would. So we can probably get that information collected and put it on the next agenda.
Cool. Yeah, that'd be good. Thank you.
Bus driver employment status.
All right, so this is something I talked with Dan a little bit about, and just to give you guys a little bit of rundown. If we one option we wanted to present was to have Cord become a WCSU employee and be paid out of WCSU and have that billed back to Windham. Lori had talked with Cord; he was fine either way. He didn't really seem to care. It does benefit him with additional sick and personal days through the different nature of the contract. Windham benefits with less workers' comp insurance expense. So it's kind of good for both sides. And so it's an efficiency that kind of works out for everybody. And so it would, reduce the necessity for Windham Central to do additional payroll as well. So we wanted to provide that offer out there and see what the board is interested in looking at.
Any thoughts, Daniel?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
Right. We talked about this briefly, but yeah, I think it's a good idea to investigate that and see if we can't put the monies in a different bin and save ourselves a little bit.
Excellent. Pat McLean, I see your hand raised. Go ahead, Pat.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So my question is, I think it's a good idea to have the board be a WCSU employee. Does that mean that the WCSU would have a driver for that bus if, for instance, Cord was unable to drive on a particular day or got sick, that WCSU would actually be have a driver for the kids?
So the wrinkle to that is that he would be the only WCSU employed bus driver because the other districts, well, the River Valleys has their own and they have enough to do their own routes. And the West River employs a contracted service provider for that. So, and Marlboro provides their own bus drivers as well. So we don't employ any others that could be subs. So it doesn't really change that in that regard. And that has been an issue. There was a substitute driver who became unavailable partway through the year, and so that there have been times when we haven't been able to provide that transportation to the families. But bus drivers, as you may know, are really in high demand everywhere right now. So yeah, no, that would not provide an additional sub driver because they don't exist at the SU either.
Is there anything that we can do to get a substitute driver?
We could, if you chose to do this, the SU could post for a substitute driver and see what we get for applicants, and see how that works and maybe try to find someone who could be a substitute. So, yes, we could go that route.
Thank you.
Michael, I saw your hand. Are you nominating yourself for a substitute?
No, I'm not. My question was regarding the CDL. Would then the WCSU oversee the drug testing requirements for the CDL and the medical card?
Yes.
Okay, that's the answer.
Excellent.
Cool. Abby, you having troubles?
I think I am. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Pat, I see your hand still up. I don't know if it's still up from before or if you had another question.
Nope, it's down.
Oh.
Thanks, Pat.
Okay, perfect. Moving on to bus route coordination.
So, so back to the day when the school was operating, typically Cord would work with the admin assistant at the building to develop the bus route and ensure that there was something publicized for the families for that run from Windham to Townsend and back. And obviously people know that there's now, it's consolidated run for the Townsend students, elementary students, and that seems to be working okay from what I understand. But there isn't a staff member to assist him with that process. And so I guess just wanted to see if folks had thoughts on if there was someone either on the board that wanted to provide some support for him, or if there was another idea that people had. I think it's like a once a year thing. It's just a quick, he kind of knows, once he knows who the kids are, where the stops are. Just didn't know if people had thoughts about that.
So the board can't see the residency documents, but we would do the bus route schedule. Like what?
Well, the bus route schedule would just be addresses and times.
I see. Okay.
So like,
So
here's where the stop is, and here's for the time, and then it's really the sharing out of it as well, which I think we all have different networks that we can share stuff out with. But
yeah, I'm happy to share it out. I don't know who would be the person to kind of coordinate that, though. Didn't we talk about the typically town office could help with something like that, or am I misremembering it? That's something.
I don't know that part, but I'll let maybe someone else knows.
The email list, I believe, Daniel, that you've probably been able to send the school updates to, is likely where that could be shared to the families, or people can request it. And I think, didn't that get posted with the supervisory union, Bob?
The routes were posted on like the school website, and
right.
So that, and then Glory this year would send out a parent square communication out to the families to let them know. Maybe there was even put on the website. So I mean, we can talk about that part, and maybe Greg can work with Core to kind of figure out how to get that document. I just didn't want to, Core, that's he drives buses, that's what he's paid for. He's not paid to develop routes, but obviously the driver's a key player in it because they're the ones that know A, where the safe places are to stop, and also B, where the kids are. So I can talk to Greg about working with Core to help create something, and then we can share it out with you guys and push it out through all of our networks.
Sure. Michael, you have an idea?
Yeah, my suggestion was that perhaps, well, maybe this year is a little different because we might be considering doing some alternative stops based on maybe if kids are going other directions. But my thought was developing, let's say, 5 stops through the town that are static. And then once that list is done, it could be sort of blasted out there. You don't have to worry about home addresses and so forth. Let's say like the bus stops at, I don't know, somewhere in North Windham, like the firehouse, and then it stops at Lawrence Four Corners, it stops at the town office, and it stops at the, Baptist Church in South Windham, or however, whatever these 4 or 5 stops are. And then that's the route for eons, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, the major junctions, right?
Yeah, the major junctions, and that way people know where they can go, and it takes the address piece out of it.
Yeah, the group stop thing is definitely a good idea.
Yeah, I like that.
Excellent. Thank you.
I'm sorry just to go back to the employment status piece. I heard you never had it. You didn't vote on that or anything, right?
Oh, do we need
No,
a
we
motion?
did.
But if you want that switch, I just would have you guys do that in a vote.
Sure. A motion for Bob to investigate, I'm guessing.
Well, it's not investigate. We'd either just do it or not do it. So
Okay.
the Lori's already investigated it. So
Okay.
you're either voting to approve doing it or you're not voting at all.
Okay. I motion to change
Hold-
our. Oh, good.
I was just going to say, I haven't spoken with Cord. Have you spoken with Cord, Daniel?
Not about that. So should we talk to him about that in bus routes first?
Well, it might be reasonable if his employment status that both of us have a conversation with him, clearly at different times, to just ensure that's his wishes. And if it's his wishes, I think that makes that a really easy decision. Not to say that, that hasn't been communicated to us, but, I think we owe him the respect to just have the conversation with him before we just change the status. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but.
Yeah. I think it's fine.
He on? I don't even know if he's on the meeting. Is he, if you're here, Cord, I don't see him.
It's fine. But Bob, when would we need to do this by, or for
I
it
mean,
to
July 1 would be, I mean, before his first payroll of the year. I don't know. Heidi may know more details about that, but we'd want to do it before his would start getting paid. So I don't know if the August meeting would be sufficient timing or not. I mean, you what you could do if you wanted to is you could do a motion to do it pending Cord's approval, and then you could let us know if you vote affirmative on that. Then you could check with Cord, and if he approves it, you let us know that he approved and it's good to go. Then he could have the final say. So if you vote to do it pending his approval, and he doesn't approve, then it's dead in the water, and that way it's done. Regardless, it's just a matter of talking to him and letting us know the outcome.
I like that. Yeah, let's do an if then. So is that cool with you, Abby? So I'll talk to Cord about the route as well.
Perfect. Okay. So move to pending Cord's approval. Change his employment status.
Yeah. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Let's see here. And my goodness, so the next meeting, July 11th, I know that it was mentioned, typically boards don't meet in July. I don't know, wasn't there kind of a deadline, Daniel, for daycare starting in July? Do we need to have any discussion with that prior to our July meeting? Is it something that waits till August? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it can wait till August because we're still talking to the licensing board or group. So I forget their names, Emily and Carolyn, I believe. So I think it's we built in the time frame a little bit of gap just in case to be conservative. So I think we could talk about it in August. I think it'd be fine.
Okay, Heidi, I see your hands up.
Wanted to point out that there will still be bills that have to be paid because we'll be doing accruals in July. So as long as somebody signs off so we can pay bills and get the fiscal year finished up, we don't care if you have a meeting, but I just want to make sure you'd be looking for that.
I think we could use a break, honestly. We've for lack of better terms, we've been balls to the wall here at Windham.
So I almost forgot I added on the historical society pieces. We can discuss that. But if we were looking at an August date, what would that be?
I believe August 8th would be your second Thursday, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's great. So we will not meet in the month of July.
Which is why I was just like, well, Jenny and Susan and the Wymans can occupy the space while we're still trying to work through the details of the programming.
Right. I think that that's completely reasonable. And so the waivers, as long as they sign waivers for those that are in the building, I think that that's kind of what par for the course. And Paul has a key already. So he has access. Are those folks still there, Daniel?
I see Jenny on. I don't know if
did Susan and Gail, did they leave?
Yeah, they left the schoolhouse.
So
okay.
Can I just say one thing, Abby?
Yeah.
Just the August date meeting that you're talking about, I am with my leadership team at a retreat for 3 days. And so I would not be available on that date. I'm pretty sure Heidi and Lori will be with me. So I just want to make sure you guys know that we are on an administrative retreat that those Wednesday, Thursday.
Cool.
Okay. Kathy Adderley?
I just, I'm always harping on the same thing about having a master plan, which I know is what, Daniel's working on. But I just think sometimes when people take space over, I think it's super important that you let everybody know that it might be temporary
Yes.
until everything is really sorted, right? And that sometimes temporary turns into, but it's our space. And I've been down that road a million times on both sides. And I just wanted to make sure that there was some understanding that, like what would happen if there was a daycare and people had to be background checked that would be in the building at the same time, or I don't know. I really don't know. But, and maybe you've already addressed all these things in your waivers, but I'm all in favor of the Historic Society finding a great place for themselves. And this might be it, but it might also turn out that there would be some type of conflict depending on who you decide for as your tenants.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. So, and I see Jenny's hand up. What I said to Gail and Susan and Paul was that we still need to get the puzzle pieces together, and I think that involves one, getting all of the people that are interested in the building. I do have requests, I do have times and things like that, but getting them together to see what that looks like when we would start programming. So that said, I do think it's going to be a temporary basis, but I just want to give you guys a home while we're still trying to figure that stuff out anyways. Does that make sense, Jenny?
Is it Kathy or Ginny? Ginny hasn't spoken yet. That was Kathy. That was
Oh, I was talking to Jenny because I see their hand up.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, go ahead, Jenny.
I was muted. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's a good offer. And I think maybe what we will probably do on Wednesday is have a meeting in the school, but we probably can't move in, and bring stuff and leave it there yet, because we're not sure who else is going to be there. But it might be that there are some cupboards or something that we could store stuff in. So in the future.
I totally agree. Cool.
Thank you.
So thank you.
And I think, as Daniel had mentioned, we were discussing, and to kind of touch on Kathy's point as well, the design of the building itself and the changing of its usage. There's things we have to pay attention to, like the only handicap bathroom, accessible bathroom, in its location, and how space can be used, and the security around that, and what, if things are being stored at the school, what is the security behind that? And I think that could be different policy we may have to develop, which is not unreasonable or unheard of. It's something that we can look at, but that's all gonna be part of the planning process. So I agree 100% with Daniel that while we're collaborating and kind of figuring out the different available options and directions, have your Wednesday meetings there, and just have the waiver signed by the people when they're there, and we can explain where that would get stored. And that's pretty much, I think, would be fine. And Paul has the ability to secure the building, and is a trusted community member. So he's in there by himself many times. So he's
Great.
So that's a wonderful thing. And that it would just be, I think, also to be clear, when you guys were meeting, it would be specifically for that use. I don't believe it then becomes the entire building is open to the public.
Right.
I think that, I don't know if we want to make that clear, Daniel. Is it that, if they're there for that purpose, so that it's not other folks are there for a different reason. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. And it's in the waiver too. You have to have a purpose to what you're doing in the building. So
where is the waiver that we need to sign?
Well, we can send you guys an email with all the information and include electronic form too, so you guys can pre-fill them out if you want to before you come in.
Okay.
But there are some that are available right there at the building.
Great.
Yeah, Jenny,
And
I think what I'll do is just contact you and we'll just do this offline, maybe a phone call, and run through where everything is and what we're envisioning, and that
Great.
goes true for the rest of the group too. Daycare, after school, music. I'm going to contact all of them and start to get those puzzle pieces together. So
Great. So do you have Susan's contact, because she's the executive officer of our group?
Yeah, go ahead and send me. I see Gail's. I don't know that I see Susan's, but
Okay.
I do. If she gets school board updates, I'm pretty sure she's on that list. So
Yeah.
I have Susan's.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Because you should send her stuff. Okay. Thank you.
thank you so much, Jenny. Pat McLean, I see your hand is raised. And there you are, Pat.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I'm just getting a little confused here. We're now switching to plans for the building, and I'm not clear who is going to be making sure that all the parents of the students have identified a school of choice and that the kids are set for school in the fall. I mean, September is coming up really fast. It's almost the middle of June here. And if you're not meeting in July, is the supervisory union overseeing making sure that they've heard from all the parents and the kids are accounted for? Or who is going to be kind of making sure that this new way of doing things is successful?
Yeah, so the SU will be sending out a communication that will also to all the families that we have on record, plus sharing it out to the usual Windham networks to make sure we capture other people who we may not have information for, to ensure that everyone has a clear picture of what that process looks like. But yeah, we would be the ones that would help facilitate any questions folks have through that process of selecting and also the transportation stipend and so on and so forth.
So if a student, if you know of the students, the ones that have been at Townsend before, and you don't hear from the parents, are you going to be contacting them and following up?
Yeah, the letter basically says that if you're in Townsend and you want to stay in Townsend, you don't have to do anything. But if you want to switch, then here's the process to switch. And for the people who are not in Townsend, here's the process you use to select and tell us where you're going to be.
Okay. Because I'm just concerned that nobody get left behind here. And
No,
I mean, I want to make sure this is a successful start to the new school year.
Yep. No, I would definitely agree with you on that. And I think if you hear of people who are like, well, I haven't heard anything, absolutely have them reach out to us, the central office, to help facilitate the process. And we'll absolutely do our best to ensure everyone is connected. I don't know who everyone is. I only know the ones that I know, you know?
And I think, Pat, we can post the letter to families in the community as well. So people that maybe aren't in the same communication link can get the information.
Yeah, I'm certainly hoping you'll have something for news and notes, because it's very timely, I think.
Yeah, I can put that in news and notes. Yeah, the 20th, right, is when you need a submission.
Yeah.
So yeah, from a week from now, yeah, I can put what Bob outlined.
Yeah, I was going to say is when I send this letter out tomorrow to the existing families that we know of, I will share the whole thing with the board as well, and you guys can hit all the networks that you know of, different groups as well, and I'll send it to Ellen to make sure she has it, and I'm going to try to figure out how to get it onto the school's website itself, and think about how we need to package that as the Windham School District, and then have instructions on what to do all right there in one place as well. So that's another step away, but yeah, we'll include everyone we can in the communication so it can be spread far and wide.
Yeah, so I want to hit on a couple things, Pat. If there is any interest for a July meeting, like for instance, if there's confusion about something, or if we need to get on for any amount of agenda items, then we'll do that. But The other thing is that I can send a school board update, and B, Elstrom has been putting that on the town website. So that's one way. And then we can put the letter, I think, in Windham News and Notes. So we have a couple different options. But yeah, if there's still confusion, then we'll meet and just talk about it.
Yeah, I think we have a number of ways to communicate, and just want to make sure that we do our best to make sure this is successful.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And as far as the building goes, a lot of our plans were tentative as we're building the roadmap. So I baked into the process that, hey, we'll try to target July, but maybe we start in August sort of deal. So it's in line with what we've been talking about. It's just kind of shifting time, but we already baked that into the process of this may happen, and it has. So does that make sense?
Sort of. Thanks.
Essentially, we got a bunch of requests where we've edited them out or talking to folks about it. The last step is to bring it all together. So what days to stop from conflicts and things like that. But the other piece was our rental with daycare, which is taking a little longer than we expected, but that's something I kind of anticipated anyways. I was aggressive for July, but it's probably going to slip to August is what I'm seeing.
And you're not going to meet with the town with regards to the town's interest?
Oh, we're definitely going to meet with the town. Yeah, this is just a revenue stream and also providing a service. But at the same time, we're going to be talking to, so simultaneous to all of that is utilizing the building and fulfilling these building use requests. So that's one side. But the other side is what do we do as a district with the building? And so that's a longer term, probably within the next 6 months, past August. So probably into the beginning of next year, we're going to be talking about doing meetings with the select board, for instance. I've talked to them all individually, but there needs to be a school board, select board joint meeting. So that's something that we need to get on the books. But before that, I need to propose and get a board approval on some type of roadmap for that.
Okay.
So essentially, we have a lot of legwork to do in terms of what is the best possible home, what does the town select board say, community surveys. So there's a lot that we're gonna be doing in the next months related to it.
Thank you, Pat. And I would just like to say, Daniel, as far as transparency goes and sharing information, you've done a fabulous job making sure that families are getting information and thorough information and are well informed as to what's going on. So off to you for all that hard work, because I do think that people appreciate that. And Kathy Edgerly, I see your hand is raised.
I did want to report that the last time I think I did talk about this grant that we tried to get to look at our infrastructure, all of our town buildings. And I don't know if you're at the select board, but anyway, we did not get that grant, but we got feedback from the overseeing group that ours was one of the highest ranked proposals. They just had too many in southern Vermont, and they only gave out one in Windham County, but there was a chance we might make it through into some other funding source or whatever. So Chris Campany sent me a letter about that. But in the meantime, we did get selected by the BCRD to come and work with the town of Windham in looking at its community needs. That probably is not going to start until October. And then they would be the facilitators and they would conduct a study that would help us determine what is the community needs of Windham. So they will be working with us to kind of build out what that might look like. And I think it would be really appropriate to have somebody from the board as part of that. We're going to try to put together a steering committee.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's something that I wanted to piggyback off of, Kathy. So
Great. All right. So I see, I'll put you on that. And then we've included, it's the 501c3 that is going to sponsor some of this is the WCO, which cuts across everything. You know, it had to be a 501c3, and we had the meeting house, we had, the New Historical Society, we had the Friends of Windham Elementary, but it seemed like Windham Community Organization was actually the most appropriate. And that little effort will also be run by the VCRD if we get that grant. And if we don't, they'll do it without the extra help. So it's a much more rigorous process. They're narrowing it down to 12 and then from 12 to 7. But they have funding guaranteed for the next 36 to 48 months. And if we don't get from the 35 to the 12 to the 7, we can apply again. But that will not negatively impact the other side of their organization, Jessica Savage, who will be putting together a team of people to work with us in October, if not late September. Does that make sense to everybody?
it does.
That does. That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
more than awesome. Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah, Kathy, I think I should talk to you offline anyways about this, about the timing and everything.
Yep.
And we can kind of figure out how this dovetails into what we're doing. And yeah.
Yep. And there were a couple of other grants that I'm looking at, and one of them that I'd love to talk to one of you about. So the grants just opened from the state, and there is an education section, but it's not clear to me. I haven't talked to Caitlin or any of the people to really get an idea of what is an ideal project and what did they fund. I can see what they funded last year. And how would they look at a non-operational school? I have no idea, none. But it certainly is worth a conversation, which I'll have with them. The applications are due in September. We were ranked as an alternate last year on this same program, but in the bucket that related to historic buildings. They have like 8 or 9 buckets of money. So it could be an experimental. It could be a new paradigm for them. It could be you guys doing some type of a demonstration project. I mean, there's ways to me that we might be able to present this and frame our needs. So I don't think we should dismiss it out of hand. I think more research is required. Bob, I don't know if you've ever encountered anybody in this track, but anyway, those are my thoughts, and I'm perfectly willing to do some research.
That would be wonderful, Kathy. Thank you so much.
That's amazing. Thank you. And I'll put some time on our calendars to kind of just talk about all of this and see what makes sense. But I love all that.
Okay.
So just to kind of recap real quick, I think Pat's concerns, and understandably is, the timeline for families, if they're going to apply to something other than Townsend, to make sure that their requests are in, the SU has that information, so that they can know they're set for the fall. So we will be reviewing that in August, but I think as far as the tuition's going to be paid, right? So for families to make their planning and get their dots dotted, that is perfectly fine. And to communicate with us as soon as that information is known, we will be addressing that in August. And that the building portion of it is a long-term project that in the short term, we're looking at some revenue options, but there is a lot of planning that will be put into the building. So that concern of, students versus buildings, students should be squared away. Families need to just let us know where they're going, or let the SU know where they're going. and follow that process. And I think that is it in a nutshell. Am I missing a major piece?
Yeah, including stuff that I learned tonight from Kathy. So, yeah, you're right about the building. It's going to be a longer question and a lot more parties. So, a lot to take in. So,
And as those planning meetings, they may be special meetings, as you know, maybe more than one board member may attend. So, in which case we would warn it. So just for folks that have those concerns, you're not going to be left out of the process.
yeah.
We'll make that available to folks and make sure folks are being communicated to. So, with that and no further items on the agenda, would you like to motion, Daniel?
I motion to adjourn. Can I get a second?
Oh, I second it.
All righty. It is 6:04 p.m.
All right. We'll see everyone in August. Thank you so much.